Many of us have found princes or princesses that we've gone out and dated. And we thought that they were our soulmates. And we found out that they were frogs. Bashert, in Yiddish, being a soulmate really means that the person you're with today is going to be that person that you're going to love forever to the end of your days. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have times when you're going to be stressed out at each other. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to, at some point or another, have second doubts, or you're not going to have awkward discussions with each other. It means that your true love will keep you together regardless of whatever fate or personal interactions that you have. So I wanted to write a story that entertained people, and I am romantically inclined at heart. I'm a real softie when it comes to that. So I was listening to the radio and I heard a song back from my day that happened to have been played at Woodstock. And if you don't know what Woodstock is, ask your parents. And if you do, you're my age and you know it was a great concert. So I thought to myself, I wonder how many babies were born at Woodstock. Because if you don't know about what happened there, they were expecting to have maybe 10, 20,000 people at this concert, and it ended up being close to 500,000 people. There were lines, blocks long to use the washrooms, not the washrooms, but the porta potties. You have to read the book because I tell a lot about it in there, but there were a lot of babies that were born at Woodstock. It was the days of living a free life. So I thought to myself, what a cool story. Talking about doing a romance novel starting out at Woodstock. So I'm a criminal attorney. I'm not a criminal attorney, but I testify in court as an expert witness. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to have my character, the guy, he's going to be a criminal attorney. And then I said to myself, okay, who is he going to be mated with? And I'm thinking to myself, I want to be true to myself. Who am I? I'm a semi-religious guy, Jewish. I said to myself, my characters are going to be Jewish because that's something I know. That's something I could talk about. And I said, okay, who's going to be my girl? And I had dated a very, very, very Orthodox girl. She found that I was too unreligious for her. That's how Orthodox she was. And I found her to be the most beautiful woman in the world. I found her heart to be the kindest, and I fell for her. And I said to myself, she's going to be my character. So I made up an excuse for her to be at Woodstock. And here's this girl who's going to turn 18 years old. She is so Orthodox, she's never held hands with a boy. She's never gone on a date. Matter of fact, all of her brothers and sisters have found their mates through matchmakers. So her parents at 17 are already asking her to if she wants to get a matchmaker to find her spouse. And here she is, and she falls in love with a guy who's not part of the clan. He's Jewish, but he's not one of these guys wearing a long coat and a hat, and he's not one of these guys who is going to study at a yeshiva for the rest of his life. And in doing this, even though I'm Jewish and I have a good background, you have to do your research. What do I mean? The first thing I did was, I know what year Woodstock was. I started Googling and finding out what are the things that happened that year of Woodstock and the next 2 years, because that's sort of the place of my novel that happened in history. Because I want to include some of that into my novel to make it authentic. I want the reader to feel that they are really in that era. So I have situations where there's police and there's different factual situations going on. I Googled what a police car looked like in 1970, 1971 in New York City. I Googled what type of van that I wanted my attorney to be in at Woodstock, so that there was authenticity. So if someone was to read this novel and they look back, they could say, yes, I could see that van. I could Google it and I could see that image. Or somebody who's a little older could say, I remember that car. I remember that vehicle. You know, I had my character driving one of the coolest cars of that era. An Oldsmobile Cutlass 442. Black in the exterior, black in the outside of the car, but red interior. It was a real great looking. But so authenticity is so important in writing a novel. I shared a lot of character development in the first 30, 40 pages. While there's a lot of controversy in those periods and things happening, crises happening, there's also love and tender moments. And I'm not saying love, tender moments only between the two lovers who are the main characters of the story, but also the parents, grandchildren of her father, who happens to be a world-famous Kabbalistic Rebbe. And I brought it into his home, the way his character is and how he works with his family, so somebody could feel for the family dynamics. And it's not a superficial family relationship. And then, when everyone thinks that everything is hunky-dory, I do a U-turn. I create a major crisis in the story. So my reader's also going, what's happening here? The police are going to arrest who? Why are they arresting them? What's happening? And I combine that with actual world events that were happening at the time. And Shira, who's the daughter of the great Rebbe, is finding that her father's being arrested. Why? I'm not going to tell you, because you're going to read the story. I now have to talk about being walked up to me as I'm Michael, who's marrying Shira. I use all my criminal knowledge into developing this story. And I'm using Google image to get a picture of the actual police station in Brooklyn that I'm using as in my novel. I'm also using some of the prisons that are going to be mentioned in the novel. And I have all these images so I can actually make the reader feel like they're there. I know what the police uniform looks like. I know what the star looks like. I know how every different part of my novel has to be authentic because that's me. I want to be proud of that. And then there's a courtroom battle that's going to go on. And I'm using the backdrop of the Soviet United States nuclear arms talk and why the Nixon administration wants this Rebbe to go into jail. And I'm using actual facts, actual people in history to make my novel, the reader feel like, wow, this is really happening. And the courtroom battle has to be real. And because I am in the courtroom all the time, and I got depositions done of me, and I'm in the courtroom testifying, I know how a sleazy attorney can ask questions. I know how what a sleazy attorney is going to maybe bring in false facts, and they might try to stump you on the stand by saying stupid things that they shouldn't be saying or things that are improper to say. Now, even though I have a background in the courts, for my novel, I brought in a rabbi to read my novel, to go through if he thought I made any technical mistakes or things that he disagreed with. And he pointed out some things to me that I didn't consider, and I added them to my novel. Then I brought in a couple criminal attorneys, a couple who are famous, and I said to them, okay, go through this. And there were a couple things that they pointed out that they would have done differently. And I added that into my novel. And then, because I'm here in Chicago, I've only been a visitor to New York, I took two of my friends who grew up in New York, and I had them read my novel. And they pointed out, I had one item being in the west side of New York City, and he said, no, that's on the east side of New York City. And there were different things that he pointed out to me that I incorporated in my book to make it more authentic. I hope that this sharing a little bit of my novel and how I wrote it will be important to you in writing your novel, or maybe it intrigues you to even read my novel. And enjoy a martini on me. Bye.